And good afternoon, producer Susan. Today's election day. When we're recording this, have you voted?
I was number 210.
And how long did you have to wait to get to a voting machine?
I waited about a half hour.
That's not too bad. By the way, I heard there's a power outage in Pennsylvania. There's a power outage in Western Pennsylvania, some Cambria County.
Oh, yeah, that's not too far from here.
Yeah, Cambria County has a power outage. Illinois has a power outage. South Jersey has a power outage. And in some places, they're letting people fill out a paper ballot. In other places, they're saying, nope, sorry, go home. So that's
So I vote. We always use paper ballots.
well,
Where
good.
I'm from. It's
So
you fill in the little like oval dot with the black pen.
like an SAT test, right? You fill in.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
always been it's always been a paper ballot, so we don't need electricity to vote.
Well, good. Well,
You need
today is election
electricity to
day,
scan
so
the ballot when you
okay.
leave,
All
but
right. Well, for those people listen, this won't post till tomorrow. So when people listen to this podcast tomorrow, hopefully we'll have a good idea of who our next president is going to
I
be.
don't know. Do you think tomorrow?
Maybe Thursday morning, I would hope. Depends, it depends. I mean, it could be Pennsylvania's going to be a big one. Pennsylvania is always late, so
Yeah.
it all depends how quick Pennsylvania comes in.
I
All
was
right.
surprised to see so early in the year, around the time of the Super Bowl, was the first time I had seen Kennedy appear as a independent running. But when I got to the poll this morning, there was two people I never heard of before, was Chase Oliver and Jill Stein.
I've heard of Jill Stein. She's perennial. She always runs the Green Party. So
Yeah, and Chase Oliver for the Libertarian Party. I was like, oh, I'm curious why anybody would actually vote for them knowing that they have no chance to
yeah,
win.
protest vote. They don't like either Trump or Harris, so they're going to vote. They don't want on their conscience that they had anything to do with either one of them getting elected. All right. All
I,
right.
but
So
I feel like that's actually like you're throwing your vote away
yeah,
though.
it is. Yeah, it is throwing your vote away. But hopefully people will still vote it for judges and district
Yep.
attorneys and congressmen and senators because that's going to be very important as well. All right. Anyway, so today's election day. I'm going to try to wrap up here in less than 30 minutes today. Um, so, and again, situation Jersey Joe, we have a lot of stuff you typically don't hear about on TV. And I've got a couple of things this week that I'm guarantee you never heard about on TV. Our quote of the week is from the late Albert Einstein on what type of weapons will be used to fight the next world war. I'd never heard this quote today, but when I did hear it yesterday, I said, wow, he was spot on. In our stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll tell you about some schools that are telling parents why their kids won't have to come to school tomorrow if they're too distressed by the election result. And other schools that are going to have counselors available if their kids come to school but are just completely distressed by the results. And here's a story you might not have seen on TV last week. The Dodgers won the World Series last week. Well, we're going to tell you how some of the people in Los Angeles celebrated the Dodgers winning the World Series. We'll tell you about the latest Fortune 500 company fleeing the state of California, where they fled to and why. We'll talk about something you sent me, which is about a family meal deal that's being offered by a national fast food chain for the same price that people. I'm sorry, we're going to tell you about what new state has been added to the list of states where you can't get the family meal deal for the same price that people in the other 47 other states are paying for it and why. We'll tell you what's happening to the global wine consumption. Are you a wine drinker? Producer Susan, are you a wine drinker?
I had myself muted because the dog was barking at stranger
Huh.
danger. But yes, I am a wine drinker.
Well, we're going to tell you what's happening with global wine consumption and production and why that might be good news for you. And if the weather's changing, do you have a ceiling fan in your house?
I do.
Well, we'll tell you why. Did you know you can change the rotation on your ceiling fan?
I did, and I always forget every single year.
Well, we're going to tell you, for people who don't know, you can change the rotation on your ceiling fan. We're going to tell you why you should change it and how to change it. And last but not least, taxpayer relief shot comes to us in Florida, where a single mother shoots and kills the estranged father of her two children who broke into her home. How many times have we heard that one?
Yep.
Angry ex-boyfriend, angry ex-husband, right?
Yep. And if she had a PFA, that piece of paper isn't going to save her.
Well, guess what she had?
A PFA.
A restraining order, yes. All right. Anyway, here's our quote of the week from Albert Einstein. Of course, he's been dead. This is from 60 years ago. I think he's been dead for 25, 30 years. And here's the quote. And he said, I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. It's one of his theories I'd rather not test, and I strongly suggest that nobody should make any attempt to prove it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, very true. I mean, I don't know if we have World War III. There's not going to be much left.
Yep, sticks and stones. So think about that. That is, I think, profound. He doesn't know what weapons are going to be used. If there's a World War III, he doesn't know what weapons will be used. But if there is a World War III, he said World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. I mean, that's profound. And
Yep,
unfortunately, I'd rather not test his hypothesis.
I agree.
All right. Anyway, stupidest thing I've heard all week, and this comes from a letter that Jerry Seinfeld sent, but it turned out not just his school. His school sent a letter to parents. And by the way, his kid goes to a private. It's not a college; it's a high school. Um, and it costs $65,000 a year to send your kid to this private school in New York City. The head of the private school told the parents that their children could take the day after school off if they were too emotionally distressed by the outcome of the election, or if they wanted to come to school, they would have counselors available to talk to their children about their anxiety over the election result. Now, how much of a snowflake does your kid have to be to not be able to?
This goes to bad parenting. First of all, these children are not even old enough to vote unless they're a senior in high school, because you have to be 18 years old to vote.
Right.
And as a parent, keep your kids off the news, keep them off social media.
Well, and if they're emotionally distressed, guess what, parent? It's your fault. It's your
Yeah,
fault if your kids are that emotionally invested.
absolutely.
If your kids are that emotionally invested in the outcome of this election, parents, that's your fault.
It is absolutely.
And the
These
producer,
are kids who can't vote. They're not old enough to vote.
right? And producers, I've got the link to this story if you can put it up on the website for people who want to watch it, or you can just Google Jerry Seinfeld slam kids, private school emotionally distressed. You can Google.
I have this thing since I knew we were gonna have a little bit of time today. So Jerry Seinfeld's a little bit older than me. I'm a
Oh,
Gen
yeah,
X.
he's 70 now. I didn't know that he's
Is he
70.
70? Okay. I didn't realize he was 70.
I
Wow.
didn't either. I thought he might
So
have been,
he's a boomer.
55. Yeah. So anyway,
So and Jersey Joe, you're a boomer, right? So
yep.
your parents were, I don't know what they called that, but it was like the Great Depression
The
generation,
greatest generation,
greatest
right?
generation. You're a boomer, I'm an Xer. And I think that all of these generations were pretty great generations in our own, we each have our own strengths and weaknesses. And me being an Xer, I was raised, you figure it out. You don't come home until the street lights come on. The
Yeah.
latchkey kids, you got to basically, we raised ourselves. You got to figure it out yourself because
Yeah.
your mom and dad are at work. So
Yeah.
we're a tough generation. We're known to be a tough generation, as are boomers and the great generation.
Yeah.
So the kids today that are growing up today that are currently in high school, the older elementary kids, the high school kids, and even the younger college kids, those children are children of Xers. Those would be my children.
Oh,
As an Xer, what kind of pansy ass kids are we raising?
yeah. Suck it up,
I'm
Buttercup.
disappointed in my generation for raising these snowflake kids because
Yeah.
we were not that we were not raised that way. We were
No.
raised to be hard
Right.
asses.
Can you imagine these kids start going on job interviews and they don't get hired on their
Yeah.
first interview? How
So I want to know
devastated they.
what's wrong with us as Xers that we are raising our children to be this way.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it's worse than sad. I think it's tragic
Yeah.
that we're raising a generation of snowflakes.
Like suck it up and deal.
Yeah. Deal with
Like,
life isn't fair, and bad things happen to good people. So, roll with it, deal with it, get up. There's a quote
figure
from
it out.
Sylvester Stallone in one of the Rocky movies, and a quote he said, "It doesn't matter how hard you get hit. It matters, that you get up,
Yeah.
and keep going." And that's what um,
I mean,
so
one of my coworkers, his son he wasn't arrested, but he was basically juvenile mischief, And I'm thinking he had to go to court and appear in court, and his dad went with him. And I'm thinking, man, if I did that, man, my parents would have beat me,
yeah, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then they would have dragged me to court by my hair.
Yeah. When I went to school, if you got, reprimanded by, today, if the principal or, calls you in the office and calls back. Today, the parents come in, they're angry with the principal. My parents would, beat the crap out of me. What do you do? What my kid doing? The principal would tell him, and he'd, get home, take off his belt, and whip my ass. But no, today they get angry at the principal for
Yeah.
punishing their kid.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. I went to private school in New York back when it was still legal to hit kids, and I remember my principal. I got ping pong paddled by my principal for probably doing something I shouldn't have done, so I probably deserved it. And then you go home, and then you get beat again by your parents.
Yeah, God.
So, again, as an Xer, why are we raising our kids this way?
It is sad. It is sad. And I truly I worry about, I worry about the next generation. I mean, these kids are going to be our adults. It's just tragic, that if your kids are too emotionally distressed by the outcome of the election, they don't need to come to school. If they do, we're going to
Yeah,
have counselors. Unheard of. But this is the first time I've ever heard that. And I think it's tragic that people feel that's necessary.
yeah,
And by doing that, I think you're kind of saying, yeah, it's okay this is normal. You can, you know, imagine when these people, you have a job. Oh, I was distressed by the outcome of the election. I can't come to work today. Can you imagine going through life like that? Or, anyway, let's move on. All right, World Series. So it was the New York Yankees against the LA Dodgers,
Mhm.
and typically when there's a big thing, there's typically like partying in the streets, and they're jumping on lampposts and whatnot. You've seen this, right?
Yep,
They're
yep,
jumping on top of well, some of the stores in downtown LA in anticipation, because the Dodgers had a three to nothing, 3-game to nothing lead over the Yankees, and it was pretty much a foregone conclusion they were going to win it. So a lot of the stores in downtown boarded up in anticipation of the celebration, right?
yeah,
Well, here's what happened. Now, remember, these stores are already boarded up, right? In anticipation of the quote celebration. Here's a TV report of what happened. And I don't recall seeing this on the national news. Did you see I'll play this. Tell me if you heard this story in the national news. Here's what happened in downtown LA after the Dodgers were victorious. Here we go.
After the Dodgers win, violence and looting broke out in some places.
Yeah, Eyewitness News reporter Jersee Patel is live in Echo Park, where a metro bus was actually set on fire. Jersee.
Now, first of all, did you hear about buses being set on fire?
yeah. I did actually,
Oh, okay.
and I don't understand like how is this the looting and the damage?
By the way, this was not casual looting. Remember I told you about the stores that boarded up? Some of these
Yeah,
people came with crowbars and cordless drills to rip down the plywood.
and I bet they don't even know like who what the celebration was about.
No, no, they knew, but they said, hey, they're going to be big, 1,000 people downtown. And
Chaos is continuing this morning. About 5 minutes ago, it seemed like a pursuit just went by the scene here. We saw multiple police vehicles following a white pickup truck going down Sunsets. We are working to figure out what exactly happened there. But like you mentioned, it seems like the celebrations definitely got out of hand last night. People doing donuts, even setting an MTA bus on fire. I'll step out the way because crews are here trying to actually tow that bus from the scene here, but there is debris all over the road here. And a spokesperson for Metro tells Eyewitness News a bus operator and 5 people had to evacuate. Take a look.
so not only did they set the bus on fire, they set the bus on fire with people inside of it. Here.
Again, I bet these people aren't even Dodgers fans that were doing
You can see
most of
smoke was
the
pouring out of You could see that smoke was pouring out of the bus. This happened early this morning around 12:30 a.m. and LAPD reported that a hostile crowd surrounded an MTA bus and tried to set it on fire near Sunset and Echo Park Avenue. Now, Metro released a statement saying they were disappointed and angered by the senseless act of vandalism. And Metro officials say that they're thankful the bus operator and 5 passengers were safely evacuated before the bus was set on fire. Police did tell us this morning that no arrests were made, but people were also stealing items and looting stores at various locations overnight as well.
Now, and what you're seeing now, if you find this clip on the website, you're going to see people who have ripped the plywood off the store, and they're going through the ply, and so they're going into the store after ripping off the ply. This is not like somebody threw a rock through a window. they went to a lot of effort to rip the plywood off the front of the store.
Police say 6 people were arrested after stealing items at a Nike store on South Broadway in downtown LA. We have video of people being arrested.
People, by the way, are walking out with like 6 shoe boxes full of Nike sneakers. Each person has 6 boxes in their hand.
Arrested and people with boxes of items. There was also a tactical alert in place, and officers were trying to disperse crowds throughout the night. LA Mayor Karen Bass warned people earlier this alert issued again this Nike store in Down 30 back to the hospital, but police were not able to tell us why or warning exactly. Chaos from last night is
more great ABC7 content.
Anyway, so isn't it sad that people seize upon a celebration to set buses, occupied buses on fire, rip plywood off the front of boarded up stores to loot the stores? I mean, it's just.
And again, I highly doubt that those people were even Dodgers fans. And what I have seen on the news so far is that DC and many other larger cities, they're already boarding up in anticipation of tonight
anticipation of the election. Yep.
And it's sad that that's now become a thing that we have to prepare to do that when we anticipate there's going to be riots.
Right. And a lot of the stores that border the Capitol, that was on the news this morning. The stores bordering the Capitol are boarding up, began to board up this morning, and they're going to finish boarding up tonight. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's move on here a little bit. So we've talked in the past. We all know that 6 months ago, Elon Musk moved a Tesla from Texas, from California to Texas. And before that, we had Charles Schwab, we had Hewlett Packard, we had Oracle, and over and a total of 80, by the way. The latest one is Chevron, a Fortune 100. I think Chevron's a Fortune 50 company, and they're relocating their headquarters from California to Texas, and a couple of different reasons. Number one, if you're in California, you have to pay corporate income taxes on your profits for the entire world, by the way. California says, oh, you have a headquarters here, you have to pay a state income tax on your worldwide profits to the state of California. Second, California has all these rules about, well, you have to have so many this minority and so many women and so many people. And the state of California mandates, if you have a corporate headquarters in California, how many people they tell you what the makeup of your board of directors has to be. So now Chevron, a Fortune 50 company, has joined 80 other companies in relocating their corporate headquarters to Texas. Now, here's a quiz for you. How many companies do you think have relocated their corporate headquarters from Texas to California?
Oh, zero.
Zero.
So I'm actually surprised because I actually have a lot of friends that work for Chevron, and they're all based out of Texas. I actually thought Chevron was based out of Texas, so I'm surprised they.
Well, that's because Texas, of course, is the oil capital of the world, but Chevron had its corporate headquarters. So, but what happens when a corporation leaves? Number one, they take their they take their state tax dollars with them, and number two, they take their employees with them. And when you take their employees with them, they take all that money out of the system because those people who work in California spend their money in California, and they also pay state income tax on their wages. So California is continuing to drive out businesses, and the people who work for those businesses are moving out. That's why California is in the top 3 in terms of net loss of population, and it's a downward spiral, and I don't think it's gonna stop.
Yeah.
So on the topic of downward spiral, now and you sent me this. Now we've all seen these things in the past where companies will run a special deal, and it's slightly higher in Hawaii and Alaska. Now, why is it slightly higher in Alaska and Hawaii?
Transportation. I mean,
right.
You can't get anything to Hawaii unless it's on a boat or plane.
You can't drive. You can't put your stuff on a tractor trailer and drive it to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you really can't economically, drive a tractor trailer from Texas to Nome, Alaska. So it's typically air freight. So we're all used to seeing higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Well, so Panda Express, you sent me this. They had a nationwide promotion. The $30 family meal is back. Feeds a family of 5 for $6 per person. And then a little asterisk, $4 higher in Alaska, Hawaii, and drumroll, what other state? producer Susan?
New York.
New York State. Now, I didn't realize you couldn't drive a tractor trailer to New York State. Is that
Yeah,
the reason?
I don't know. I mean, I'm dumbfounded.
Well, it's yeah, obviously, the state has a minimum wage that's higher than most. And then
Mhm.
two, you've got taxes in New York State.
I
You
mean,
got
if you're going to
big,
go that route, you might as well include California in the mix
well,
too.
I guarantee you that'll be next. But anyway, so by a $40 surcharge and a $30 meal, that's a 13.5% premium. So if you don't think that government increases your cost of living, um, New York State's a classic example. It's not because you can't get there by car or truck. Um, if you want to buy a Panda Express family meal deal in New York State, it's going to cost you 13.5% more than any other state in the union.
I
Again,
just didn't understand why New York. And I have occasionally seen asterisks that include Manhattan, which everything's more expensive in Manhattan,
sure.
but to include the entire state of New York,
Yeah, I could understand Manhattan, but you're right. The entire state of New York, well, again, this comes down to state taxes and state minimum wages. All right. So let's get on to wine. You said you're a wine drinker, right? Red or
yep.
white?
Both, depending on what I'm eating it with.
Okay. Um, anyway, since 2017, and this is not just the US, this is global wine consumption is down more than 10%. Now, that's the equivalent of 3.5 billion fewer bottles of wine. And let me tell you why this is more than you think of. The 10% didn't happen all of a sudden. It's been building. So in 2018, it was 3%. Well, they had a 3% surplus. Well, that wine got put in storage, it got left in vats. And then it was another 4% in 18 and then 19. So right now there's about a 30% backlog of wine because it's now 10% per year, but it's accumulative. And they've been, I don't want to say hoarding, or what's the word I'm looking for? They've been storing this excess glut of wine is being stockpiled by
Mhm.
the wine producers. And that's why I'm seeing wine. I would buy some relatively inexpensive red wine to have with dinner. I used to
Mhm.
pay 10.99 or $11 a bottle. It's now 7.99. Sometimes I've seen it for
Yeah.
6.99. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm paying 40% less for a bottle of
Yeah, I
wine
think you
now.
introduced me to a really good bottle of $7 Shiraz, which is a red wine.
Right. That's the 6.99 wine I'm telling you
Yeah,
about. I
six
used to
ninety
pay
nine.
$11 for that. So that's good news for wine drinkers. But again, apparently people are drinking more seltzers and other stuff.
Yeah.
But there is a huge 3.5 billion bottles of wine is being stockpiled because people are not buying wine the way they used to. So even with inflation, wine is the best deal around out there. So, but yeah, believe it or not, you can get, and I sent you a bottle. You can drink some,
Yeah.
you can drink some pretty decent wine for 6.99 a bottle.
Yeah.
So anyway,
And over the last decade too, there's been this trend of microbrews, not just microbreweries, but micro distilleries. I don't know about in New Jersey, but they're popping up all over the place around here. And
yep,
what yeah, a ton of microbrews and a ton of micro distilleries.
distilleries. Yep, yeah, locally, whiskey, scotch, whatever. Well, you can't call it scotch unless it's made in Scotland, but like Stranahan's in Colorado got its start
Yeah,
about
but they're
10
all
years
over. I
ago.
mean, locally here, we've got, half a dozen breweries and a half a dozen
Distilling.
distilleries.
Yep. Yep. All right. You want to talk about ceiling fans?
Yeah.
All right. Now you can change it. Every ceiling fan either has a little chain or a little black switch, a slider
Yeah.
switch up on the can. You can either pull the chain or get up on a ladder and push the switch, and that will change the rotation of the fan. And if it spins one way, it will push air down, and if you push it the other way, it will suck air up. So
Mhm.
which way do you think that fan should be blowing in the summer?
It should be blowing down.
Right. You want a little breeze on you in the summer.
Yeah.
But in the wintertime, even though the air is theoretically warm, it'll still feel drafty if there's a breeze on you. So in the summer, the rotation of your fan should be blowing down.
Mhm.
And in the wintertime, it should be sucking up. But if you're not
Yeah.
sure, if you're a smoker, you light a match and see which way this smoke is going. If the smoke gets blown down, your air is blowing down. And if it's going up, or light a straw and see which way the smoke goes. but in the wintertime, your fan should be rotating so that it's pulling air up,
Mhm.
not blowing air down. So that's your little ceiling fan tip.
Yep, and mine's a little black switch. And it's funny you said the switch or fan or chain because I was actually looking at buying a new one. And nowadays they're all controlled with your phone.
With your phone or a little remote. By the way, we have time to talk about Peanut the squirrel?
Yes.
All right. So I assume everybody's heard about this. There's a guy in upstate New York. He runs an animal sanctuary. And 7 years ago, apparently this female squirrel got hit by a car and she had a little baby that was orphaned when the mother got hit. It was a baby squirrel. He took this baby squirrel in, nursed it, bottle fed it, raised it. It's been a household pet. He started a TikTok channel, and the money he raises, because he has, I forget how many million viewers on his TikTok
Yeah.
channel, and the advertising he gets supports his animal. He's got rescue horses, rescue llamas, rescue pigs, and he also had a raccoon that was
Raccoon.
housebroken. Anyway,
Mhm.
some Karen, we all know what a Karen is, right?
Mhm.
Called up the New York Department of Environmental Conservation and said, "This guy's got a pet squirrel. That's a wild animal. He's not allowed to have it." They sent not one, not two, not three, not four. They sent 8 officers to his house to search his house. And by the way, which I'd like to know the name of the judge that signed the search warrant
Like, do we
to
have anything
search.
else better to do? Especially in the state of New York.
Right. So number one, who's the idiot judge that signed a search warrant?
Yeah.
And why did you need 8 people to go to this guy's house because he's, quote, has a pet squirrel? So they confiscated the squirrel and the raccoon, and then because the squirrel nipped one of these guys, well, the squirrel might have had rabies. We have to euthanize it and examine its brain for rabies. So they killed the squirrel. They also killed the raccoon. And by the way, they didn't have to do that. They could have just put the squirrel in isolation and started the guy that got bit with on the rabies shots. But no, they confiscated the squirrel and proceeded within 12 hours to kill the squirrel. So that's if you haven't heard the story
And
about
there is, the old standard was that you had to test the brainstem to see if an animal had rabies. There is evolution in that now you can do saliva swabs. It's not quite as accurate, but it exists.
right, but you can also just start yourself on, my wife got exposed, there was a rabid skunk, didn't bite her, but
Yeah.
she got exposed and she just got the shots,
Yeah.
because the skunk ran away. So they never got they assumed the skunk was rabid from the way it was behaving.
Mhm.
So she just got the shots. She got 3 shots over 3 days. So they
Yeah.
didn't have to kill the squirrel, but they killed the squirrel. So that's the saga of Peanut. And by the way, if you want to Google it, it's P-nut,
Mhm.
P-nut or P apostrophe nut, Peanut the squirrel. I assume everybody's heard about Peanut,
Yeah.
but that's talk about government overreach with all the stuff we have going on. We have illegal immigrants murdering people, committing gangs, and they were able to. If you don't think we have too much government, if you have 8 people standing around to go raid a guy's house to confiscate his pet squirrel, you
Yeah.
have too many state employees.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Again, especially in the state of New York, like, do you have anything else better to do?
yep.
Um, so there's another famous squirrel, and it's not a pet, but it's very tame. So at Penn State, there is Sneezy the squirrel. Sneezy also has his own social media. And there is a woman who dresses Sneezy up in different outfits. That's how tame our squirrels are around here. They're not pets, they're not housebroken. They are wild squirrels, but they are the most incredibly tame squirrels that if you don't share your lunch with them, they will crawl right up into your lap and bug you. Yeah, Sneezy the squirrel.
Sneeze the squirrel. All right. How much time we got left?
We have about 6 minutes.
All right, well, let's do our taxpayer relief shots. And the reason we call them taxpayer relief shots, we've talked about this before, but let me start with the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And we talked about saving the taxpayers money, just for those people that never heard it. If a thug gets arrested and go, they never have their own money for an attorney, so they get a court-appointed attorney. If they go to trial and they plead not guilty, that's $250,000 for a trial, with the state picking up the cost of both the prosecutor's salary and the defendant's court-appointed attorney. And then if he gets sentenced to jail, it's $80,000 a year for 10 years. That's $800,000. So it's $1 million try a thug and send him to jail for 10 years. So that's why we call them taxpayer relief shots. So here's one we've seen this story before. A woman has a restraining order against a ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, and he ignores the restraining order. By the way, I think they ought to, if a woman gets a restraining order, I think they ought to just issue her a concealed carry permit on the spot. Here's your restraining order and here's your concealed carry permit. You get one automatically. So here we go. This is out of Florida.
Half hour about a woman who shot and killed an intruder in this Ortega Farms neighborhood early this morning. Neighbors tell us the intruder was her children's father, and she had a restraining order against him. News 4 Jax reporter Brittany Mueller is live outside the apartment complex on Katoma Street. And Brittany, you just got new information from the state attorney's office.
Yes, I did, Mary. That court hearing was scheduled for this morning about that restraining order. They had 2 kids together and broke up last March. But since then, she says he's threatened to kill her. A smashed window and crime scene tape covering the back of this Mission Springs apartment on the west side.
When I pulled up, I immediately, my heart dropped. About 2.5 years ago, my cousin was killed. Somebody broke in and killed him. Over in the apartments right down from her.
Police say they received multiple 911 calls about gunfire on Katoma Street near Timaquana Road, including one from a woman who said she was the shooter. When officers arrived, the woman told police that the intruder was still inside of her apartment. Homicide detectives found the man laying on the floor by the master bedroom with multiple gunshot wounds.
You never know. You got to be prepared for something like that in any moment.
It's very concerning because it's a lot of seniors, children, and elderly people out here.
News 4 Jax crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson says if someone is forcefully entering your house, you have the right to protect yourself.
A person after midnight or in the wee hours of the morning is unlawfully entering this house. The person's inside, don't know who it is, don't know what's going on, other than there's an intruder coming through. And they have the right to protect themselves, even if it means using deadly force.
There have been several other cases where intruders have been killed. In April, a 36-year-old man was shot to death after he kicked in a door in Riverside. And in December of last year, a 21-year-old was killed when he tried to break into a neighbor's home in Julington Creek. And the sheriff's office says this is an ongoing investigation, and the next step will be for the state attorney's office to decide if this shooting will be ruled justifiable or if any charges will be filed. We'll keep you updated. Reporting live from the west side, Brittany Mueller, Channel 4, the local station.
So if you're a single woman, or if any of our listeners have, relatives who are single women, the old saying is so true. When seconds count, the police are minutes away. At the end of the day, you are the person who is primarily responsible for your own safety. And if it's 12 o'clock at night and an ex-boyfriend or ex-husband is breaking into your house, assuming you can even dial 911, by the time they get there, it could be all over. So it's personal choice. I realize this. And if you're not prepared to shoot somebody, then you shouldn't. But if you put your own safety and that of your kids ahead of, how many of these have we heard in the last 2 years, Producer Susan? Is this what, half a dozen?
Oh, yeah.
Single women.
This is a daily occurrence.
Right. Remember, a restraining order is just a piece of paper. And the police cannot be there. If your ex-boyfriend, ex-husband chooses to violate the restraining order, it's just going to be you and him for the next 2 minutes. So again, this will be on the website. If you want to, you'll post this link on the website.
Absolutely.
Yep. So this is a great one because she talks about other ones where people were killed. Anyway, Producer Susan, anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nope. I'm just curious how long it's going to be till we hear some results.
Well, hopefully we'll know by next week when we do the next
podcast. Oh, definitely by next week, I'm sure. But it's definitely not going to be today, and I'm not sure that it's even going to be tomorrow.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. Anyway, I want to thank everybody who listened for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found some of them as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard us talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, with Jerzee being spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E. Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to just joe@jerseyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with a R, a Z, and two E's. And other than that, Producer Susan, if you've got nothing else, we'll sign off and we'll talk to you next
one
week.
thing I
What?
didn't realize was a thing is that you can't wear political attire
Right.
when you go vote.
Right.
Did you
We
hear
had
about the woman in New Jersey that she
took her top off and voted in her bra. Yeah. She had a
Yeah.
Trump t-shirt and they said you can't bring that in, so she took it off and voted in her bra. So all right. All right. Talk to you next week, Producer Susan. Take
All
care.
right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll bring it.